Huddle!
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Steel City Huddle podcast. If you're joining us for this strange Thursday hodgepodge of a pregame show plus a recap of the last game, we really appreciate it. We know we're usually here Tuesday nights, but sometimes life gets in the way of things. And so if you've showed up at this funky time, we hope you're at your desk at work and everybody hears how awesome you are. Zach, how are you?
Oh, tired, but I'm happy to talk about football, especially talking about the game we're going to talk about and talking about the game tonight. To me, it all seems very positive.
It does indeed feel that way. So let's jump right into it because we've got an hour and talk a little bit about that amazing win over the Browns. I mean, we talked last week during that game, and I said to you before the game, I just want a game where we kick somebody's ass and I don't have to spend the whole time so stressed out. And look, we didn't put up 57 points on him, but it was a solid win that felt like a solid game throughout. It felt like we were dominant through all 4 quarters. It wasn't one of those games where it felt like, we decided to take a back seat for the second half of the game, So all in all, I thought it was really good. I was impressed to see all the players get A scores from Rape and Apollo, which has almost been unheard of in recent years. So what were your overall impressions of the game?
I'm happy that things are going the way I decided to put my trust in, which was this is a group of veteran guys. It's a veteran quarterback. Arthur Smith just needed someone who knew how to run an offense and give them more than 2 or 3 games before you decide what they were going to be. Because no one freaked out in the Steeler locker room. I think everybody just was they're like, okay, well, our offense will get there. It's bits and pieces, and there's still a lot to clean up, and that's what we saw. And the biggest thing about that was I genuinely thought this offensive line was going to get eaten alive. And they really stood their ground. They had to do it in some unique ways to take some pressure off people, but bravo for coming into that game and taking that seriously. Doesn't seem like something we would have done in the past.
They all but negated the effectiveness of Myles Garrett. By the way, put zero stock in anything PFF says. I don't know if you saw that wacky ass score they gave Myles Garrett, like he had a really solid game, and then gave Broderick Jones a toilet score. And Broderick Jones shut him down. I mean, right, Relic is right, 100% shut him down. He was a effective player for that game. I love the after game comments because he was clearly so salty when they asked him what he thought about that offense just going out there and moving the ball, and he's like, oh, must be nice or whatever. So I loved all that stuff. I loved all the salty comments. But we talked about that offensive line last week. Let's just go ahead and talk about this offense. Yes. I would say Aaron Rodgers is doing what Aaron Rodgers has done every game this week, right? So I saw somebody say, look, this isn't going to win him a 5th MVP award, but it's the consistent work that needs to be done for him to solidly lead this offense for us to be able to win games. And isn't that all we've been asking for out of these quarterbacks we held in recent years? And then you look at that offensive line, and we talked about this last week, and we've talked about this idea of when do you start to feel like these guys are just a bust, right? Just not even gonna ever be okay. And I said to you, my hope is that they keep coming back and just a little bit better each week. And I feel like that's definitely what we saw from them, and it makes me feel like ease off the panic a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't, there's so much of it that worked. I mean, we had a running game for the first time in a long time, and it was a real one. But this defense that's how they're supposed to look. When everybody jumped onto this whole, oh, they should look like that right out of the gate, week 1 and all that. No. This is how they're supposed to look. I think it was the first game where our entire healthy defense was together. And so this is finally Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin had the pieces to play with, and it was fun. Jalen Ramsey getting 2 sacks.
that comment from him after the game where he was like, I can't believe this is my life. Like I'm playing with, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, and then I'm going to get 2 sacks, the most for the game. And it's the first time he'd
Yep.
had 2 sacks in his career. And I love that excitement because we've talked about this before. To me, that kind of excitement is palpable. Success breeds success. And I definitely feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
coming from some of these players like Ramsey. You're right about that defense. I think the opportunity to play like that and have everybody be healthy and everybody be a productive, participating member makes it so that when somebody isn't healthy or somebody isn't at 100%, the rest of that group feels like they can pick up the slack.
Exactly. And they're only going to get better. We're what, week 6 or 7 after bye weeks. I always have to take a second to think about what we were going into, but we're only going to get better. But that is actually, interestingly enough, one of my concerns because I don't just want it all to be shiny and pretty, which a lot of it is. But we're 4-1 now. But we're 4-1 early. So can this team sustain this? Can you not peak now? Is this the Steelers peaking, or is this the Steelers starting to find their peak, and we're going to eventually get to it? I don't know what it is, but that is the only thing in the back of my mind that's been bugging me. That if we're this good early, can we sustain it?
And look, I mean, I don't know. You know me, like I'm the queen of like positive thinking and being overly optimistic. And I have to look at it in this way. Like we talked about this early in the season, right? Like week 1,
One second. I think you froze for a moment. Or did I freeze? Oh, okay. So it's just me for a moment. That was that was unexpected. I'm not all that sure where Leanne went. But in regards to this, I know stream is messing up. I'm not sure where Leanne went. We'll figure this out in a moment. But while Leanne is out, I'll bring up a topic that I'm not sure when we're going to talk about, but I figure I'll bring it up now. Is what kind of moves do you want the Steelers to make if they are going to actually be a Super Bowl contender, or should they stay pat? Is that something that would help them more? Because I really can't figure out which one I'm on board for, because there's a lot of people still saying that they want the Steelers to get that wide receiver too that everyone keeps talking about, and every receiver that gets disgruntled, someone's going to bring up the Steelers need him. But is this something where we actually do need to go out and make that quote unquote one big splash play? Or is this something where we can stay pat and say that this is not the peak of the Steelers team? She was so excited that it couldn't handle it. I like that is exactly what happened. Leanne's incredible excitement just could not handle that. So I'm curious, for people in the chat, do you think that right now this is the point where the Steelers need to go all in? Or is the offense and defense that they've put together right now, is that enough to be all in against the teams? So Leanna is going to be back in just a second. So she is okay. So there wasn't like anything like a sudden line attack or something. So, but Leanne is currently restarting her computer. Um, so she will be back in just a few minutes. If not, then we're going to see. we'll get a guest on really really quick. But I've heard of Jacoby Myers. People talking about him, but right now I'm more in the camp of the Steelers just staying pat. I feel like, especially with Mike Tomlin being so surprised that you would make a move with someone that was valuable. Oh wait, look, I think we have a Leanne.
sorry
Hey,
about
it's
that. That
Leanne.
was weird. All of a sudden, it was like your device can't access your microphone, it can't access your camera. I tried to go back out and come back in, and it wouldn't let me like connect to my camera. So I had to shut it like all down and start it over again. We'll have
Goodness.
technical issues in the middle of a show, but so I apologize.
No, it's okay. Honestly, what it makes me think about is how good computers are now. Because way back when you had to restart a computer, that was going to be like a 3-4 minute thing. So, while you're gone, I decided I wasn't sure at what point we were going to bring it up, but I was asking people in the chat what they thought if this was a point where the Steelers needed to make that one final big extra move to say we're contending, or is it a we haven't come close to peaking yet? Don't go out, don't sell the farm, don't lose any of your draft stock, and actually just kind of stay pat and see where we're going.
I think that's a really good question. I did Joe's podcast, the Donut Guys podcast, the other night, and he brought that up. Like, this whole notion that we don't really have a wide receiver too, like depending on what's going on with Calvin Austin. Do you know what I mean? That we don't really have one. How strange it is that, although there was a Roman Wilson sighting, we're not really Roman Wilson. So we talked about that a little bit, and that idea of like bringing in somebody else. And my gut reaction is like, yes, go get that missing piece, bring that person in. Do you know what I mean? Whatever you need to make this push. And then I go, but who is that? You know what I mean? And then that's where I kind of get stuck on like who that guy is. Like there's guys out there, some of the same names we talked about last year when we didn't have a wide receiver too, like Chris Olave and some of those guys. And then you just have to wonder, like, is it really worth it? You look at a lot of those guys that have been plagued with injuries in the league before, and they're plagued with injuries again this year, so makes me wonder, like, is it worth it? Like, also, are we going to mess up the chemistry we've got right now? Like, if something is flowing with this group right now, and this wide receiver 2 is going to really just be this fluid group of tight ends and other depth wide receivers, and you know what I mean, and mix and match them, is that going to be something where we mess that up?
Another
Relic says
another big thing to ask.
If you could keep it in check, bring him in. And I don't like it. Yeah, look, I think that the first part of your sentence is the big thing. Is can he keep it in check? And then he's a guy that I immediately wonder about the chemistry. Like, does he throw? Yeah. If that group has good chemistry with Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith and each other, does somebody like Odell Beckham throw all of that chemistry off because he's still a me person? Or is he going to surprise everybody like Aaron Rodgers, who we all thought was going to be a me person, and 7 weeks into the season doesn't seem to be?
Exactly. And more than that, even, so let's just say that we get someone who isn't one of the character people or the worries that we have. They're going to come into a team where number one, DK Metcalf is your number one target. And he's getting like 8 targets a game and getting like 6 catches. That's this offense humming. That's us looking really good. How are we going to come up with catches for if people want another guy like Olave, or like people aren't going to come here specifically for that. So that's the biggest thing. I don't think there's enough to go around. And exactly like you said, Leanne, I don't think anybody wants to just bring another piece they have to try and work with right now. I think I heard, I forget. I was listening to the Kaboli podcast, and they were talking about how way back in the beginning of the season we had one play that we ran out of our jumbo package with Spencer Anderson. And now we have about 6 or 7 different plays that we can do. We're slowly building things in that by the time we get to those big games we're talking about at the end of the season, or knock on something, the playoffs, we're going to be able to pull them out of the hat. Like, people watch the replays of our gadget plays in the Super Bowl in 2005 and all that, and against the Bengals. Those didn't just happen. Throughout the season, it was a progression that they learned when to do it and all that. So I'm not saying that you're suddenly going to see Calvin Austin throwing a football, but this kind of an offense, it hums when you don't mess with it too much. So, and we don't need anyone on defense.
Yeah, look, I'm not even so opposed to it. Like I said, to me, it would really matter who that person was and what that situation would look like. But you're right, we're not a heavy enough passing offense that it feels like we're desperate for that other guy. And I don't know, maybe that other guy would unlock something to the next level. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. It makes me very nervous. I just feel like sometimes when things aren't broke, maybe don't fix it. But Relic says, can you both address this rumor? Steelers trade Muth plus Highsmith and the third for A.J. Brown on the Eagles. I've been posting this isn't going to happen and shouldn't, but so many Steelers think it is. First of all, I have to say that I think so many Steelers fans think everything is going to happen. I mean, anytime anybody's available, it doesn't matter what the cost is, it's immediately that the Steelers should go and get that person. I saw Steelers fans saying we should hire James Franklin as a coach, which was bizarre to me, and I'm a Penn State fan. So I just, I have somebody out there, they're like 3-year-olds on Christmas and like, gimme, 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 gimme. I also think there's fans that feel Alex Highsmith has suffered and dealt with a lot of injuries the past couple of years. And I mean, that's a fair critique. It's, it's not his fault, you know what I mean? But it's a fair comment to make. And so I feel like they think to, and they feel like Muth isn't producing the way he should. We've talked about that. And so then you package those two guys up and send them off. But it's much like the same as I used to say to people when they would talk about how TJ Watt was old and washed up and he was no good, but we should trade him for 6 first-round picks or whatever. Well, if we think he's old and washed up and no good, if that's really true about him, then why does somebody else want to take him? So, I think that too, like, for an A.J. Brown, if Freiermuth and Highsmith aren't any good anymore or so injured.
Yeah, and yet again, AJ Brown is going to want the same kind of passes that Metcalf is getting. So now you have 2 wide receiver ones, and all of a sudden the Darnell Washington passes that we all desperately wanted and finally are getting are gone. Or the screens to Jonnu Smith, or the little Calvin Austin that we might as well not have any other receivers if that's the case. So it's the reality of it. Plus, I think with Freiermuth, I don't think what's going on right now is an indictment of him. I think it's an indictment of the way that this offense is going to win. And this offense is going to win with big human beings moving other big human beings. And Freiermuth, I think Mike Tomlin straight on said it a bit ago that it's just we can't put him up against 350-pound guys. Darnell Washington, you certainly can. Freiermuth, you cannot. So I'm hoping as this offense progresses and evolves and they learn more about it later in the season, that niche for Freiermuth will open up. Because if not, then absolutely he is prime trade bait. But we're not going to think about it at this moment. Mike Tomlin likes how things are going way too much to fuck with it even a little bit.
The one thing I'll say about Freiermuth is, and I know like blocking isn't like his strong suit, right? But he is somebody who's really good at catching the ball. So to me, it feels a little bit like there's an opportunity there, to have him out at the field the same time as other receivers, do you know what I mean? And make the defense unsure of who they need to cover. I do feel like he opens up some opportunity for things like that. I didn't think the Steelers would ever make the DK Metcalf move. So clearly, like the stuff they're doing in 2025 was not in Leanne's crystal ball this year. But the A.J. Brown trade just doesn't feel like something they'll do.
Yeah, I didn't when that came out. I honestly thought it was a joke for a little while. It's not so. Yeah, this is definitely the season where if it was going to happen, it would. But maybe if we were like 2-3, or like even 3-2 or something, but 4-1, looking like we are right now, and we're gonna get into the Bengals game. But let's be very honest. I don't know of many Steeler fans other than Mark Madden, and even maybe him, that are going into this game with just a luggage full of confidence. Just a ton. I mean, and I'll be very honest, and I'm hoping I'm not going to jinx anything here. I'm going into this with I want a beatdown. Like last week wasn't big enough for the beatdown I want right now, because that's taking care of business. That I needed to, because yeah. But goodness gracious, that Browns game, the way I always know that if I'm really looking into what a player is doing and I'm impressed by him is if I'm thinking about getting his jersey. And number 51 is looking really good right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Relic says, unfortunately, casual Steelers fans have given up on Highsmith because it's what they want. But I think he's been fine. It would be hard if Herbig got injured. And that's where I am on this. Do you know what I mean? I think that struggling, struggle that they were having, holistically with the whole defense caused a lot of players to look.
We're gonna lose Leanne again. Think we may have lost Leanne again here. So as she figures that out, yep, it's messing up. It's cutting in and out. Yep, there we go. So I guess while we're waiting, I want to from the chat. I'm curious because I'm hoping that it'll just be another reset. If she's not back in another couple minutes, we'll take a look at where we're gonna go from there. But at the moment in the chat, what the voodoo magic is going on is when you have two AFC North games this close together and the Steelers are doing well, the football gods don't know what's going on. Because anyone who's watched the Steelers for long enough knows the football gods simply do not like us. There is an entire X account based on the fact that Jesse James caught the ball, where the only thing he does every single day is post how many days it's been since Jesse James caught the ball. So that should let you know. So I think too many positive things are happening in Pittsburgh, and the football gods just aren't really sure what to do with it, and they're taking out on this. So on the off chance that Leanne does not return, we will figure out plan B. But I'm curious, what people, who was people surprised by? We all knew Nick Herbig was going to have a good game, not an amazing game and all that. But was there anybody people were surprised with in the Cleveland game, where either how much they were used or the production in that game? Because I watched a lot of tape on Broderick Jones. And I'll be honest, I kind of felt like a hater. I really, really did, because I could feel it in my soul that I was looking for a reason to be really mad about his play. And while, yeah, not a lot of it was, elite or all of that. But yeah, there you go. There you go. Relic is right there with me. Relic, truly, exactly. I watched that tape. It's hard to admit it, but I really went into it wanting to see something like, oh, well, it wasn't him. There was these people, and while he did get a lot of help, it's amazing. It's something to hang your hat on to say that I held Myles Garrett in check, and not just held him in check. He did nothing. He had one tackle, and I don't remember that tackle. It wasn't like a tackle that like riled people up. It wasn't a tackle for loss. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a tackle. That really surprised me. There was, and for anyone who would come out and say, "Oh, well, it wasn't Broderick Jones. He got help and all that." To be able to quote unquote get help on the offensive line, you have to know how to pass a player to the person you need help with, because that player is not just going to constantly come over to you and give you the help. And I was watching, and his ability to slide Myles Garrett to the side or push him to areas where he wasn't as comfortable with, rather than just taking him straight on. There was a smarter approach that I saw in the game. Relic also points out, yep, we had Jalen Warren also on a mega chip block on Miles and got him to stumble enough for Rodgers to get an outrun. 29-year-old Garrett to make the first down throw. That's another good point. And if anybody needed any further reason to see why Jalen Warren, not just in his running, but is so elite, and I don't use that word lightly, elite when it comes to his pass blocking. Dude took on Myles Garrett not just once, but a couple times. That didn't always go his way, but there's a lot of running backs that wouldn't even try that. Man's back.
Try this one more time, guys. If I flake out again, I'll just let Zach finish the show. I feel so bad to keep coming back in and out. I have no idea if it's my camera, if it's our internet. We have community internet in the new neighborhood, or if it's my computer. I don't know. But it keeps telling me it can't access my camera.
Oh, well, we'll try it again. I was just asking the chat who the surprises were in the game. And the Broderick Jones was the first one that was brought up. And I did admit, and I'll say this again because you're on here now, that I went into my film watching ready and wanting to find something wrong with his game. And a point that I brought up that I'm wondering how you'll see this. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, we got help. He got help from other people on there." Do you think that him needing help against Myles Garrett is a knock against him? Because I think it's for him to know that he needed that and to be able to pass blocks over or maybe during the week say, "Hey, listen, guys, I can't take him one on one. We're gonna have to figure some out with me." I was impressed by that.
Look, there's no disputing, even if you think Myles Garrett is a fat fuck like Relic does, there's no disputing that that fat fuck is a talented athlete who gets a lot of sacks and makes a lot of tackles and is very disruptive, right? You can't take that away from him. And so to me, it's no different than how other teams have to plan to deal with TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, you know what I mean, and come in and balance that out. We have to do the same thing when we play against Myles Garrett and some of these other, like, really, Nick Bosa's of the world. And, you have to plan for that stuff. And so to me, if that offensive line was able to come up with a plan to handle Myles Garrett, I think that's a huge win, because the beginning of this season, there would have been no plan that was executable that they would have been able to work out together. They would have
Yeah.
struggled. And if extra attention was given to Garrett, then it would have just opened up a hole for somebody else to mess with them. But Relic needs to come visit my house, because fat fuck is about the nicest thing I've said today. So you have to catch my usual cursing. So yeah, I just, that's how I feel about it. So I don't care how you get there. I don't care if four guys had to band together to stop Myles Garrett. If you were able to shut down, that defense and stop them. I mean, the Browns have one of the best defenses in the league coming into this season.
Yes.
It's an exceptional defense. We talked about that. It's what we were worried about. And our offense, who seems to have struggled with lesser teams, was able to pull it together and stop them. And I think that's, you can't say enough good things about the way that they were able to do that.
They were, and a big part of it is taking advantage of bad coaching. Yeah. Because that Browns game was horrendously coached. They had Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome staying on sides of the field rather than following. Why wouldn't you have Denzel Ward? It's Denzel Ward. You put him on Metcalf, but no, Greg Newsome has been with the team, 6 days in practice for 3 of them on it. And they knew that, and Aaron Rodgers looked as like, really? We're going to have a fun day today. Yeah. I'm just really, really impressed. There's so much momentum. Yeah. That I'm going to be honest, in the past, I'd be worried about the Steelers keeping. I feel like I should be worried about it, but I'm not. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Save that for the Bengals talk in a minute, because I want to talk one more thing about Myles Garrett. I love that Mary Kay Cabot, who's a Browns reporter, posted, ask Myles Garrett if it's harder and harder to dig deep and keep pressing on and losing like it was for the Browns, Joe Thomas. He said, yep. And man, I gotta say, like, I struggle to, like, there's some athletes that are like really good athletes and they're on terrible teams and you feel bad for them, right? Like, I always felt that way about Micah Parsons. Like, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's on a horrible Dallas team for years and years, and they're never able to do anything. Previous Commanders players, I felt that way about. I can't feel bad for Myles Garrett, because he opened Pandora's box and said, I want a trade, without really talking to his team first. They came back and gave him $40 million, and he chose that money over choosing going somewhere else where he could have made $38 million, but had a shot at a Super Bowl or a shot at a playoffs or a shot at a consistent season. And I think we all saw when we watched Hard Knocks last year that he's like a me guy, not a we guy. I mean, that was abundantly clear. And so I think he did the me. And, you had no one to blame but yourself. He's never sacked Aaron Rodgers. I didn't know that until that game. Really? He was hoping to sack Rodgers to put him, he puts out like a weird Halloween display every year with tombstones for all the quarterbacks. And Rodgers is apparently not in that graveyard. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Talk about our defense for a minute before we move over to talking about the Browns or the Bengals. And I saw this, and they asked Juan Thornhill about Dylan Gabriel. Brooke Pryor wrote, He said, kudos to the Browns putting a rookie out there against a front line like ours. He definitely stepped up, made some plays with his arm, but having a rookie coming into Pittsburgh against a defense like ours, that's a tough battle right there. He said, I think he got a little flustered in the pocket. And if I'm being completely honest with you, with me being that post player a lot, just sitting back there, I was watching him. He was very antsy trying to get the ball out of his hand. And we still was getting back there. I mean, I can't say enough about how they got after him. I felt bad for that kid. Like I can't imagine being 20 years old or however old he is, 22 or whatever, and you're playing some of your first professional football games, and you've got like Cam Hayward and, Nick Herbig and Jalen Ramsey and TJ and all these guys barreling down on you.
They were, and my goodness gracious, when we drafted Derek Harmon, I'll be honest, didn't really know who he was as a player, had to research and really look up. My goodness, did we draft? He is playing brilliantly. If you haven't gone back and watched specifically of just him, he is throwing around full-grown NFL players, like just casually throw. And I am so happy that that's working out. Yeah. Because we need someone there, because Cam Hayward, if he can be given a reason to know that that place is solid, he'll gladly ride off into the sunset with the money that he got. And Derek Harmon is playing like a full-grown man right now. And that is important for a run-stopping defense. And we're actually stopping the run.
Yeah, at least Cam will feel like, okay, I can sit on the bench for this series or this snap or whatever, do you know what I mean, and take a break or whatever. Like, to me, I feel like it gives him an opportunity to really kind of coach these guys up and be able to make some progress. So yeah, I was happy about that. I saw this too. Steelers tight end snaps from the Browns game. Washington 47, Smith 41, Freiermuth 21, and Hayward 6. I thought Hayward had a that nice catch that kind of solidifies, like, I'm not just here because I'm my brother's brother. I thought that was nice for him. Wide receiver snaps against the Browns: Metcalf 49, Miller 26, Wilson 15, and Skoranek 10. I thought Skoranek would have more in that game than he did.
Well, I guess it just didn't call for it, because it seems like the offense is not just calling plays like they were last year. It seems like they're looking at all, because we have a very unique offensive roster. They might not all be superstars, but they're very unique. And if Arthur Smith is kind of growing into himself as an offensive coordinator and working with Aaron Rodgers and saying, okay, we got this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy this week, but next week we're playing against like the Bengals tonight, we're going to need different guys to step up in different ways. And I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but playoff winning teams are teams that can do that. Playoff winning teams are the teams that can win any type of game that they need to with any type of player. And while we may not be there yet, only needing Skoranek that many times in an AFC North game, that's saying a lot. And by the way, the starting off with the throw to Darnell Washington, I was right back in the 2005 playoff game against the Colts when we opened with the big throw to Heath Miller, and I was like, what are we doing? This is craziness. I honestly felt like a kid again watching that. So more of that, please, because no one expected that.
Yeah, no one expected that. And I kept saying, like, I mean, we're not back to the old trick plays, Hines Ward, Cordell Stewart, Ben Roethlisberger even stuff. But, like, it's just nice to see something new and different. Do you know what I mean? A little bit new and different. Before we switch gears and talk about the Bengals, one more thing. I have to commend Mike Tomlin, and this is why I love this man, and this is why he remains my coach, and I will never speak a bad word about him. When asked about Stop, Bentley. Got people coming in and out of my house. When asked about the Flacco trade, Mike Tomlin said, it was shocking to me. Andrew Berry must be a lot smarter than me or us. Bentley, stop. Because it doesn't make sense to me to trade a quarterback that you think enough of to be a day one starter to a divisional opponent. And I mean, that was like the diggity dig without like coming right out and saying somebody's stupid.
That's true. And actually, to throw some more gasoline on that fire, when I was listening to the Kaboli podcast the other day, he said that not only is that pretty much as personal as Mike Tomlin will get, but apparently across the league, Andrew Berry is known as a guy who doesn't know what he's doing and fucks things up for everyone because it's not etiquette. It's knowing how to trade, knowing who not to trade to. For example, the Giants owner who traded the Saquon inside the division, there are rules. You don't do certain things, and there is a certain part of it where Tomlin's like, God damn it, I was going to get to play another young kid. I got to play Flacco again because Flacco's played us a lot. And every time I think Flacco is just going to fold up and be nothing, he shows up. And I really don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I had the same feeling as you about it. I thought that the same exact thing that, he isn't always, just some like hapless old man. I made a lot of jokes on Twitter this week about the ages of those two players, you know what I mean, coming together and the kinds of silly ads we were heard, but combined ages like 81 or something. Do you know what I mean? And I had a post somewhere where they had talked about how I guess that they've never had like two players. I can't find it now. Two players that old. Oh, here we go. Tonight's Bengals versus Steelers game is the first divisional matchup in NFL history featuring two starting quarterbacks over 40 years old. And that
really?
I was like, well, like all these quarterbacks that played into their 40s, right? And I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. But man, I wouldn't have guessed that, you know what I mean, on my own. So I think that's interesting. And I find myself right back in the position today I was in before the Browns game, which is like, don't underestimate these guys. Definitely don't underestimate Joe Flacco, who always seems to have like a chip on his shoulder and feels like he needs to prove something to someone. And surely he's right back there after, trying to ride off into the sunset a little bit and then get benched by the shitty Browns. I mean, like, you're not even like by a good team. Not like he was playing for the Bills. Get benched by the Browns.
Exactly. And whenever you like, I actually have that the clip of Tomlin.
Yeah, so, play it. Let's hear it.
Oh, okay. If anybody was wondering, apparently, before we play this, I will give some insight. Coboli did say that Tomlin often makes comments like these as he's leaving the media room. Just this time, he purposely did it into a hot mic.
Yeah.
So this is.
Well, you guys were annoying me today with some of that.
I love it. I love him so much. I just can't. I love him so much. Relic says, in his opinion, Joe Flacco is playing better than Dylan Gabriel. I have to agree. Yep. Like, I think you have to ask yourself, like, what is your purpose and like how strong is this kid's mental fortitude, meaning Gabriel, right? Like, we've seen players in the NFL get started as rookies too soon or as young players too soon, and they aren't able to handle, all of the adversity and the losses and the hits and everything else. And so, how much of that can he really handle and still be successful and be able to go back out and do it again next week and not be scared. So now looking at that Browns team was bad last week, right? This Bengals team, what surprises me the most about the Bengals is that they had like the best offense in the NFL last year. Like, I don't know what like official ratings show or anything like that, but Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were like unstoppable last year. They were putting up like absurd points on teams last year, but then couldn't stop anybody. Their defense was terrible. Well, then they turned around and did nothing about their defense during the offseason. I thought for sure you're like, oh, we have this great offense. Let's go fix this defense. And they didn't. And then now to compound that issue, their best defensive player, Trey Hendrickson, is going to be out for tonight, I saw. So, I mean, that really hurts their defense even more. So when you look at it, it's interesting because everybody's like, oh, it's two really bad teams in the AFC North. But the Browns at least were supposed to have a good defense. The Bengals don't even have a good defense. So how do you see us approaching this Bengals team? Like the same as the Browns? Do you feel like we'll take a different approach in this game?
Weirdly enough, it's kind of both. We need to do the exact same thing as we did to the Browns, but focus differently. And the Browns, it was shut down Junkins or shut down the running back, and everything else will fall into place. That was, I truly believe, the focus of it. And they turned it into not just a one-dimensional offense, but a bad one-dimensional offense. In this case, I don't care how many players it takes, you cover Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is the only player that can wreck this game. And for anyone out there who's like, oh no, it's such a bad team, you obviously didn't watch the Denver Broncos playoff game. A receiver, I don't want that to happen. So whether it's Joey Porter with Jalen Ramsey on top of it, or however you have to do it, you shut him down, and everything else will flow well from there. I believe that's their focus.
Yeah. It's not working. I have to agree with you. I think that they have to look at that a little bit differently. And again, it goes right back to the don't get too cocky, don't get too arrogant. You know what I mean? You have to be careful about those things. Relic back to Gabriel. He threw shade at the Steelers saying his mom would hit him harder than that. Then the Steelers did. Yeah. Then why did you have something like 45 yards till the third half? Get fucked, dude. Didn't he get sacked like some insane amount of times?
I think it was 6 times. We sacked him 6
right?
times.
That's what I was just looking to see. I couldn't find it that fast, but yeah, I think it was like 6 sacks. I mean, so come on. I watched you get hit. It didn't look gentle, but I have to say I respect the trash talk because it would 100% be me. I would get off the ground and be like, that didn't hurt. I'm not going to give you this satisfaction. Yep. So kudos to the kid for being tough and not letting him see you sweat kind of thing, because you almost have to do that. So Jamar Chase obviously is a key, shutting him down. Do you feel like this is enough time for Joe Flacco to get in there with this offense and really develop chemistry, or do you think we're catching them at like just the right time?
I actually think it's the worst possible thing to happen, because Joe Flacco is weirdly at his best when he doesn't have all the information and just plays backyard football. And a lot of it's going to be improvisation. And while he looks like a puppy who's half falling asleep all the time, he just does. I don't know how I think he's just constant like NyQuil just in his water bottle and stuff. But he somehow finds a way to make things happen where you're like, it's Joe Flacco. We can't. And maybe one time tonight we can allow that to happen. But we cannot allow Joe Flacco to do anything out of the ordinary. And the easiest way to do that is do exactly what we did to Dillon Gabriel, hit him hard. I think there was like 15 quarterback hits, something like that. We hit Dillon Gabriel hard. And whichever quarterbacks hit harder is the one that's going to think twice before throwing a football. And that's what at least the Steelers defense is capable of. The Bengals won't be able to do that.
Right. And I agree with you. I think that's definitely got to be part of what they do, and really, really look at just kind of shutting them down as much as possible. It'll be impossible to shut them down completely, because I think one of the hardest things to defend, and we talked about this last week going into the Browns game, funny enough, is that when your team feels like they have nothing to lose, they will go out there and just do whatever they can and whatever they have to, and take wild chances and go for it on fourth downs and throw the ball 60 yards and all kinds of things that you may not do in a normal game. And you see that work. And that's, Mizzou brought that to Alabama last week, and they were like, yep, we're going to do an onside kick. Yep, we're going to go for 2. And yep, we're going to try this. And it was working for them in the beginning of the game. And so that's always what makes me nervous about playing teams like this. If they come in with this attitude, like we're at the bottom of the AFC North, what do we have to lose? We've got to try to preserve some kind of a win. Hopefully Joe Burrow will come back in the postseason. He'll make some miraculous speedy recovery and come back, and we've got to just get ourselves there. And then they've got nothing to lose, and they just take some wild chances, and it throws the defense off, and then our defense gets rattled, and then they struggle. So I definitely hope that's not the case. I do think that this is a better scenario coming off of this win last week, that they're going to feel joined and connected, and all of those things I think actually will help us maybe not be cocky or arrogant or too, overly confident, but at least a little bit more in sync.
Absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head because it's the perfect segue into literally what I was just thinking, which is the two things that we didn't talk about negatively or point out from the Browns game was number one, Broderick Jones, but number two, defensive communication. Not once did I say what is going on, why is that person out there? Where it was crisp. And I don't think that just magically happened. Same as the offense needed some time to gel. When this defense is all together and has the pieces and you're not moving this guy to here and using a third string this guy and all the communication is there. That's the only reason I'm not necessarily concerned about if those trickery things happen or if they throw everything at the wall happens. I think this defense is going to react pretty well on the fly because they're starting to learn how to play as a unit of really talented individuals, but a unit, and that matters. And that's what I saw against the Browns that I didn't really see a lot of earlier in the season. I saw a defensive unit.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point because to me it was the thing we were complaining about at the end of the season last year when we were losing games that they didn't have that. And you're right, they did look like a group. So something magical happened during that bye week. I don't know if it was the extra time, the easing of the pressure, the momentum off like the big international win, a combination of all of those things. But to me, you see a spark in this defense that we haven't seen across the board like that. You see it in a player or two, but not across the board. I wanted to mention too, big news that Deshaun Elliott's going to play tonight. They didn't say what, so you have to imagine something going on with his family. It sounded like personal reasons, and he was not at practice, and then he wasn't going to play. And then I saw right before the show that he's arrived in Cincinnati. I guess he flew separately from the team, but he's arrived. And so that's good news to hear that he's going to be playing in the game because he's such a catalyst for good things on that defense. Relic says we're going to see classic Joe Flacco. He's getting, as long as that's not the Joe Flacco that won a Super Bowl, he's going to have his throws. He's going to do what Joe Flacco does, but he can't win this game. There's a reason Indy gave up on him and the Browns. And I agree. But, sometimes teams give up on you over the long term and not the short term. And, even in Indy, even in Cleveland, he had some flashes, where it looked like old Joe Flacco. And that's, like I said, that's always what makes me nervous about him. And if you give him an inch, he takes it. He's so veteran and smart, So you just have to make sure that they really limit his arm because he's not scrambling on anybody any more than Aaron Rodgers is. So you just have to make sure that we limit them as much as possible and just provide really solid coverage.
It's true. And I was thinking about it just now. With all the teams that Flacco has played on, is Jamar Chase hands down the best receiver he's ever gotten to throw to? That may have that I didn't think about that because Joe Flacco's been throwing to some upper echelon wide receiver twos, but not a lot of like Jamar Chase level guys. So this is a perfect test because I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of back air ball, a lot of crazy things that'll happen. How will this defense handle that? Will they be able to allow a big play here and there and still not be rattled? I like that you use the word rattled because I'll be looking for that.
Google's AI says among the best receivers he's played with, it's subjective, of course, right? Anquan Bolden, Steve Smith Sr., Derek Mason, Mark Clayton, Torrey Smith. I don't know. Jamar Chase to me is in a league of his own, one of the greatest to play the games. I mean, he's got himself set up for a long and incredibly successful career as long as he stays healthy. I mean, he is truly an exceptional wide receiver, and there are not many as good as he is, ever. So he's something else. Relic brings up another good point. We do need to clean up the penalties, 10 for 59 yards. And I think that's, this is the kind of game where, it should feel like an easy win for us, but you can't make mistakes like that where we're giving them easy first downs for stupid penalties and things like that. So yeah, I 100% agree.
And the biggest thing that I'm going to look for is, and the penalties thing is actually a good point because it directly impacts what I want to happen, which is early, consistent running success. the running success we've had, at least that I've seen in this season, have been towards the end of games. I'd like to see something a little earlier, but then as I was thinking that, I'm like, well, we have seen some of it, but there's been holding calls that have brought it back, or there's been illegal motions that are silly little plays that have brought it back. So I would love to see a really clean penalty game.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Who do you think is going to be kind of our surprise player of the game? You know, we talked about that earlier with the Browns game. Who do you see as being a surprise player of the game? Offense, defense, both?
Interestingly enough, I want to see Cole Holcomb have a standout moment. I have gotten to a point where I expect Patrick Queen to do big things. We've gotten to a consistency point with him where he is now just on fire. And I'm like, do your thing, Jalen Ramsey is good. I'm not really looking at all that. I'm looking at Cole Holcomb to say I'm not getting a lot of chances, but look at what I'm doing with the ones that I do. And I'm talking about something not necessarily Cole Holcomb-y, like maybe an interception. Maybe he drops back and we're not expecting it, like a James Harrison moment thing. But I think a Cole Holcomb really big moment somewhere in the third quarter, and that defense will just go ballistic for him. This defense loves Cole Holcomb. They love when he makes big plays, and they are excited for him being back with that unit.
I think everybody's just so happy that he's back and at the level that he is. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people felt like he'd never play again. Do you know what I mean? And so for such a nice guy to put in such a devastating injury after seeing so much good from him, and then that devastating injury, to see him be able to turn it around, you know, get healthy and come back at this level is just unbelievable. Just truly unbelievable. I am surprised but he needs to make more big plays to get that kind of attention for like comeback player of the year. And you know, I mean, to me, he should be right in there in the conversation. If Alex Smith is comeback player of the year for his devastating leg injury, then why isn't Cole Holcomb in the conversation? So I think it'll be interesting to see.
I didn't even think of that. Now, one thing I am curious about, knowing that Trey Hendrickson definitely is not out, did that shift what, you know, eventually at the very end of the show where we do our predictions, does that shift that a great deal for you? I'm curious how much that impacts how you're thinking about the game.
You know, I was just thinking about that same thing a minute ago, because I don't know, like my first instinct is like, yes, it changes it a whole bunch. Do you know what I mean? But then my next instinct is like, maybe not so much. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a touchdown. I don't know. It's hard for me to say, because I feel like there's other hungry guys that could easily step up, and I don't know enough about them to discount them. But Trey Hendrickson is an extremely talented football player, so not having him is a huge loss for the Bengals for sure.
It is, and what I would say is I'm hoping two things. I'm hoping the Broderick Jones and Fatanu say, you know what, yeah, he's not playing, but let's go into this as though he still is and attack it with the same effort, not the same technique, because, you know, depending on who's playing, but the same effort that we would if he's out there. And then let's really hope that Arthur Smith came into this and say, guys, listen, we're going to prepare for him to play, but on the off chance that he doesn't, here's our plans B, C, and D. So we're not going into this saying, oh, he's not playing. Okay, I guess we're going to do this. And then let's be ready. Let's show that we're ready, because now I don't know, I'll be honest, don't know a lot about the Bengals defense, mainly because there's not a lot of people worth knowing on the Bengals defense. Right. But when you don't have a player like TJ Watt or like Myles Garrett who you have to run away from or you have to scheme things away from, all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers and this offense has a much bigger scope of the field than they had before. Yeah. And I'm excited to see if maybe that gets us a real stomping, or if that makes us get a little cocky. Because I like to use that word, because there is a worry there that we're going to be like, yeah, we're the Steelers, look at us go. And then the Bengals beat us. So
I mean, to me, that's what I said before the Browns game, right? That happens to us. And we immediately, it's like our fan bases go to about us playing down to teams that aren't very good, right? Like it's the go to. And there's a kernel of truth in that. Like there's been games where we definitely should have won and we didn't. And I don't want this to be one of those games. To me, there's no reason we can't win this game if we don't just go in and play good, clean football the same way we did against the Browns. Do you know what I mean? Really consistent, solid attack, keep pressure on that offense, continue to have our offense put pressure on their defense. And to me, it should be a no-brainer win. So let's do our predictions. So last week, the Browns score was, I can't remember. What was the Browns score?
It was 29. Was it 29-6?
I think so. It was 6 for sure.
26-9.
It was 20. You were 20-6 for the Browns.
Yeah, I know it was close. Let's see. This shows the kind of day it's been. I'm like, wait, I have no.
I had it in my head too. Okay, 23-9. So neither one of us were right. 23-9, and you were 20-6, okay. And I was 25-15. So neither one of us were really right there. So let's say, what is your prediction for this Cincy game? What do you think the final?
Oh goodness. I gotta be honest, that Trey Hendricks thing did change it, and I want to manifest something big. So let's say 34-7.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I want that so badly.
I'm right there with you. Relic's got us at 28-14, so I'll make a note of that. I've got us at 27-10. I think, we won't totally shut him out. I think it'll be, look, by Steelers account, a big game, a solid win, right? Like we were all really happy with our 23 points last week. I think we'll all be really happy with 20-some points this week. My hope is, we go in there, we get a solid win that we need before we get into this tougher part of the season and leave Cincinnati injury-free.
That's a great point about the parts of the season coming up, because don't discount having the veterans that we have on this football team, along with Mike Tomlin's desire to talk to them in a realistic way, because there's a big picture view going on here right now where they're looking around and teams that are normally dominating are losing. The Bills are losing, the Chiefs are losing, and they're like, guys, there's blood. Yeah, there's blood in the water. So take care of your business. Just take care of your business. And when we look up, we're going to suddenly be near the top of the AFC. But just focus on your stuff, because it's kind of like the year Tom Brady tore his ACL. Yeah. Everyone was like, oh, we all have a chance. Everyone run for it. So it's very similar to that.
Joe Burrow's turf toe and Brady's ACL. Look, I agree with you. I think we got to just focus one game at a time. I think Tomlin does a good job of instilling that in the players and forcing that with the players. And so I hope that's where all their heads are right now, same as us. One game at a time. We have to win to get there. Just keep ticking them off, get closer and closer to postseason win, and just stay healthy. Well, if you've joined us for our weird 3:00 show on a Thursday, we really appreciate it. We hope that you will come back and join us Tuesday. Bentley is upset about something. Come back and join us Tuesday. Come back and join us Tuesday. I apologize for our show then. There's too many people coming in and out of my house, and we will see you then.
Leanne and Zach would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.